Welcome, I'm Kinetic Symphony. This is Dave. I hunt down and report on weird and true mysterious stories, from glitches to the supernatural. Case file number 1772, written by Cherry Cocktail 20. The Winter Wait at Serendipity's Gate. About 20 years ago, I was waiting for a bus in the middle of winter. At the time, I was a 22-year-old punk kid, mohawk, basically just a messy rascal. As I was waiting, this older Middle Eastern man, probably in his mid to late 30s, walked up to the bus stop. He was wearing a blue suit. Looked like he was probably an office worker in one of the financial business towers nearby. Basically, we had nothing in common. I can't explain what happened. But the second we saw each other, we just stopped and stared at each other, and smiled this really simple, sweet, confused smile at each other. I have never felt such an overwhelming sensation of, I know you. Not in my life before or since. And I also know he felt the exact same thing. I recognized him immediately and just knew him. It was a surreal goosebump kind of feeling. He walked over to stand next to me. We stood smiling at each other for like 5 minutes, not having any idea what to say, before he finally asked, "Do you have the time?" I shook my head, no. This was flip phone days and mine was dead. So we continued to just stand there smiling at each other. I don't think either of us had any idea what the hell was going on, just that we absolutely knew each other. When the bus came, it was empty. We walked on and immediately sat next to each other on this empty bus. Continued just quietly smiling at each other. I was confused as hell, but I've also never felt so at peace to sit next to anyone, let alone a stranger. I should stress, there was nothing sexual about this interaction. It wasn't physical attraction. He was absolutely not hitting on me. There was no weird vibe. It was entirely comfortable. It just felt right. Like, yes, of course, we should be sitting here together. I know you. This feels good to sit here like this with you. His stop came after 5 or 6 minutes, and when he got up, he just said, "Maybe I will see you here again?" I nodded. He got off the bus, then stood to watch it go as we waved goodbye to each other. Never saw him again, but I can never forget it. I think about him all the time. Look, I'm an agnostic and don't believe in reincarnation whatsoever, but this event is one thing that makes me wonder. It was a really overpowering feeling of comfort and familiarity and recognition with this person. Despite that, we had absolutely nothing in common and no reason to interact at all. Case answer file 1772, The Winter Wait at Serendipity's Gate. So I think you met a player that you knew in a past iteration of the game. If I'm correct, we live in a simulation, and my guess is, it's like an MMORPG that we could play now in this simulation, where you log in, you get to experience a character that isn't you, in a different kind of world, and then you just play it out from there. This is almost like meeting a person that was a different player in a different server, or different iteration of the simulation, and in that iteration, you were probably very close in some format. The biological sex could be different. You might have been lovers in a different universe, or different simulation, but now you don't even know each other. But in the original server, you still saved each other as friends, and now, when you're in a different server together, and you meet each other, which apparently is quite rare, because these stories don't come about very often, there's so many people in such a large world, it's not that surprising. But if you do happen to run across them, you know it. There's like an instinctual pull. You can't explain it. Well, I guess I just did, but you can't explain it deeper than that. But it's there. Have you ever met one of your friends that, a stranger that you never met before, but you knew them? Because that's never happened to me, and I want it to happen. Case file number 1773, written by BSJDLDML, Hunches and Hues, How We Avoided the Blues. My husband and I were coming back home after college. He turned to look into our next door neighbor's patio. It was piled to the top of the fence with years of junk and garbage. He loudly exclaimed that it was a fire hazard. He huffed and started going on about a negligent HOA and how they would hate to have to pay to fix everything. It wasn't something he'd ever brought up before. It was honestly never even thought of as a fire hazard, just a nuisance. He refused to sleep. ASMR wasn't working. He had intense anxiety all night. I fell asleep, but I'm guessing he eventually did too. We woke up to our dog screaming at flames at 4 a.m. She saved everyone's lives. Our neighbors had gone out to smoke at 10 p.m. Both threw their cigarettes into the junk pile, as they had done for years, but that is the time it went up in flames. I later asked him about why he had announced it was a fire hazard just hours before the fire. He shrugged and told me that something felt wrong. A few months later, during finals week, he woke me up in the middle of the night, demanding I take my final test right then. He would not take no for an answer. He woke his brother up and made us both coffee. He then monitored us and made sure we had everything submitted and every test taken. He let us go back to sleep at around 6 a.m. I thought he was just being a jerk. But when we finally all fully awake at normal hour, he just shrugged, told me that he had a gut feeling and that it hadn't gone away, not yet. Hours later, I was gaming when the Wi-Fi cut out. The same neighbors who had started the fire cut our Wi-Fi wires with our stolen gardening shears. He was grinning at us from the patio. He asked us how our finals were going. It took 2 weeks for them to fix the wires and for us to have working Wi-Fi again. My husband saved all of our grades that day. Case notes for file 1773, Hunches and Hues, how we avoided the blues. Okay, so first off, what the hell's going on with your neighbor? They have this pile of garbage in their backyard, in their patio, and they toss finished cigarettes into it all the time? They are directly responsible for the fire. Now, I guess no one was killed, but still, property damage, having the fire trucks go. Shouldn't that be so negligent it should be illegal? Like, they should go to prison for that, at least for a bit, or pay massive fines. I don't know. The fact that they're still there later on to cut your internet, which, by the way, it's not you're cutting your Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is from the router, which is just a local area for your, that's not a big deal. It's just a technical point that I see a lot of people make these days where they're so used to just using Wi-Fi, they don't realize the actual internet is not Wi-Fi. That's just the local area connection to the broader internet. Anyways, they cut your hard lines, the cable or fiber that was coming into your home. And why? They're that petty? These people sound like horrible neighbors, and I would just, I would go crazy living next to them. But in terms of the glitch, I mean, it's more of a power story. Your husband, it seems like he doesn't even appreciate the ability he has, where he has this sixth sense, this supernatural sense, above the normal, to perceive of future possibilities. Now, I've discussed it before, but the further out you permeate into the future, the harder it is to predict what future is going to happen from the current set of circumstances. But in a short term, a few hours, it's doable if you have enough information going on in your brain. But even then, it's still just probabilities. So your husband might have these instincts, and sometimes he might be wrong. But if they're sharp enough, it might not be that often that he's wrong. So definitely trust your husband's gut all the time. I would. Case file number 1774, written by Frauleinschweiger. Featherweight, a glimpse from beyond. I wish I had an explanation for this, because it feels insane. But I have no reason to lie about it, because if anything, saying it happened looks crazier. Was at a sleepover in middle school, playing light as a feather, stiff as a board. For anyone unfamiliar, it's a silly, scary slumber party game, like a Ouija board, where you try to do some seance-esque nonsense. Get together, put your hands under someone lying on the floor, close your eyes, chant, light as a feather, stiff as a board, repeatedly, and try to get them to levitate. Dumb, right? A group of about 8 girls and I had been playing to no real avail, obviously. But when it was one girl's turn, we'll call her Allie. If you're out there, back me up. We did the chant, zoned in, and, before long, had this girl over our heads on, I crap you not, just the tips of her fingers. Her fully horizontal body was resting above eye level on 2 fingers on each hand, taking barely any effort or weight. And not only could I see that everyone else was only using 2 or 3 fingertips max, I was easily both the tallest and strongest person there. No one could have been lifting her alone under the circumstances. Once she got to a certain height, someone got freaked out, screamed, and her total weight fell on us. We had to stick our arms out to catch her, where she'd just been at the same level just a few seconds earlier. While I don't have a single scientific explanation, we did live in the woods in rural, old-timey New England, in an area where there were certainly colonial-era battles, issues with settlers, indigenous burial grounds, etc. Needless to say, I didn't mess around with incantations much after that. Case answer file 1774. Featherweight, a glimpse from beyond. Okay, now this one is spooky, and I don't have a really good explanation for it. Could there have been a spirit nearby that saw this seance and just decided to, well, not prank you, but just participate in what you were expecting to have happen? Maybe? Can spirits levitate that way or take a lot of weight off of a person so they can hold themselves with just a few fingers? I mean, maybe? But that doesn't really fit. I don't think that's the case, but I don't know. I mean, was it her mind somehow creating an anti-gravity field beneath herself somehow? I don't know. This one has me stumped, and it's those games like Bloody Mary, you know, saying it in front of a mirror. I know nothing would come of it, logically, but I'm still never gonna do it, you know? I've seen the Supernatural episode, and I'm good. Call it a day. Now time for the joke of the day. Oh, this one's topical. Okay. Why did Donald Trump take a bullet to the ear? Because he didn't react when the Secret Service yelled, "Donald, duck!" Oh man. Yup. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony signing off.